The answer to that is yes. But let's look at the 5 causes of anger and show how each one of those causes can turn to destruction or it can bring about a great amount of good. Now, first of all, before we begin terms, what is anger? It is a vice, but it's a vice that when turned and used to build up something, to motivate someone, a passion within them, it's called zeal and no longer anger. So anger is destructive, but zeal is constructive. We have a passion within us. This is the passion of our Lord Jesus Christ for our redemption. It's called a passion because it is the singular thing that motivates us. The vice that opposes justice, which means to give to God what is due, is sloth. Sloth, there is no motivation to do anything, to create something, or even to destroy something. It's just neutral indifference. So what are these 5 causes of anger, and how are they turned to zeal? The first cause is injustice. The second, fraud. The third, false accusations. The fourth, impatience. And the fifth, manipulation. Now, I'm sure none of those resonate with any of us here, right? We don't have a trouble with any of these. So this is for other people. No, it's for us all. Every one of us acts towards either destruction or construction with these things. Let's look at the first, injustice. Again, we define justice, the church defines it as to give to God what is due. And there is also a natural justice that is given to other men, to your parents, to your employers. This justice is also part of what we give because we give it first and foremost to God. So injustice is when a man acts against that, refuses to give to God what is due. And that is the number one cause of anger within us when we see that. When we see it being perpetuated against someone we love, or even against ourselves. The second is fraud. When one is defrauded of something, that means you are tricked into giving away freely something in exchange for something better, and then you find out it was a trick. It wasn't real. You trusted that person. This makes us angry too. False accusations. When people accuse us of things that we did not do. They accuse us of being evil or acting in a way that is unjust, or maybe acting in a way that's fraudulent. And we know that that is not the case. That is not true. They don't give us a chance. They don't really know us. They prejudge us, prejudice against us. That also is a cause of anger. Impatience. To be impatient, particularly with another or with God. People get angry because they expect an instant answer right away. They expect God to act right now and do something. There is a heresy called quietism. It was prominent in the 1800s. The quietists were Jansenists who expected God to come and fix everything. And when God doesn't, they get angry at God. They expect the church to change her teachings to align with me. And when the church doesn't do that, they get angry and leave the church. Quietism is a defined heresy, and it goes right along with the vice of sloth. Men want to sit back and do nothing and have everything taken care of. Everything's supposed to now be, made perfect again with me doing nothing. God has called us sons, friends. He's given us a share. If we are going to fix the injustices and the fraudulent around us and those who bear false accusations, we need to act. And we need to act with justice and with truth and with goodness. And we need to be patient. We need to continue to do what we are doing, providing a place for those that when they do come back around, when everything of the world has fallen apart, when they put all their trust and their hope in certain persons who are unjust and fraudulent and bring accusations, there will be a place for them to come where God is loved and served. We need to be patient. We need to be patient in our prayers. Because most of the time, the reason our prayers are not answered is because we expect our prayers to change God instead of ourselves. We resist the change within ourselves. And then manipulation. Probably the number one modern way that manipulation is known is through what's called pacifism. To be a pacifist. A pacifist is one who says, well, let me give you an example. What if a person said to you about your mother, that your mother is a cheap prostitute who steals and is a liar? A pacifist says you should not get angry. Never, never, never get angry. You should say within yourself, well, you have a right to your own opinion. You can, maybe you got some good points there. Yes, I'm going to avoid conflict at all costs. What insane world do we live in where this has become the norm? And why has it become the norm? Because of the pacifists that are fraudulent. Let's go back over it. The unjust, the fraudulent, the false accusations, those persons who are impatient and manipulative. And you're not going to like this, but I just defined the modernist church. I just defined those men that will go together in conclave and elect another leader that will bear all of these marks. And then I will have people say again to me, why are you so angry? Stop being so angry. It doesn't benefit a bishop to be so angry. Because they can't identify zeal and a love for something. I do not have a hatred for the cardinals. I do not have a hatred for Francis. I have a love for the church and for God. And these men have been unjust when it comes to God. They are frauds. They're not stealing your money, they're stealing your souls. They're not stealing your money, they're taking your religion. And you're going to be a pacifist and step back and say, well, as long as my church has the kind of mass I like and the kind of music that I like, it's best not to say anything. Because anger is just going to turn people away. It's not anger, though. It's zeal. You know, I used to complain a lot about what was going on in the world and the church. And one morning when I was doing my meditation, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Stop complaining and do something. See, I was being a quietist. I'll just set it back and talk about all the problems. I'll identify all the problems. I'll keep showing all the problems, but then do nothing about it. There are millions of people on the internet that will tell you all the problems and point out all the problems and then sit back and do nothing. They talk and talk and talk and do nothing. And people identify with them. They say these are peaceful, good men because they do nothing. Do you want a generation of men being raised that will sit back and not defend the honor and glory of your church, of your faith? See, when they say those things about one's mother, they say the same thing about my mother, the church. They say that she's impure. They say that she's corrupt. They say that she is fraudulent and unjust. And they're going to fix all of it. And then they expect the Catholic priest and bishop to be a pacifist and not get angry and not fight back and not say something. And they call the man that does that a kind man, a peaceful man, a good man. He's not a man at all. I don't make a judgment on individual men. I understand these younger priests. They were indoctrinated and raised in modernism. They were indoctrinated in the seminary for 8 years into this. But the fraudulence has to stop. They're not Catholic. If they want to say, I'm a modernist priest, and I believe in modernism, and I want to perpetuate modernism, then fine. But don't call yourself a Catholic priest in my presence and teach that garbage. Say those things about my church and my faith. And tell me that in charity, I must love my fellow man more than I love God. In charity, they say, I must love my enemy. Our Lord said, love your enemy, do good to those who persecute you. But he also said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. God, your neighbor, your enemy. Who is my enemy? The one who's unjust, the one who defrauds me, the one who brings false accusations against me, the one that continues to push in impatience and then says it isn't true or isn't good and I don't have anything to do with you because you don't bring about what I want. And then the manipulation of the pacifists. That is my enemy. And do I, in fact, love them? Yes. And how do I show my love? By bringing them to the truth, by giving them God, by bringing them to the Catholic faith. There's no greater charity than that, than truth, goodness, beauty, and unity, because that is God. I'm not a fraud. I strive not to be unjust. I don't bear false accusations and false witness. But again, they have not stopped bearing false witness against God and his church. And that is one of the 10 commandments, and that is a mortal sin. Especially when you stand before men and claim to be a disciple of Christ. When you stand before the world and claim to belong to the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. A man can be fooled by these things, just as a man can be fooled by somebody who perpetuate fraud upon them. But you know what? If I were standing up here right now exposing a Ponzi scheme that was stealing your money, you would call me a hero. You would send this video out to everybody you knew to warn them. And yet I stand here and tell you that there is a Ponzi scheme against your faith, against the salvation of your soul. And then you call me schismatic and heretical and a liar. Because where your heart is, there's your treasure. I've said this before. If I were giving out every day a gold coin the size of a host, this place would have to be 10 times bigger, 100 times bigger. People would make every sacrifice to be here, to get their little gold coin so they could go out into the world and be independent instead of being dependent upon God and his church for their spiritual good. The injustice of it, the fraud, the false accusations, the manipulation of using God's divine word in order to try to justify their position. Yes, we are called as bishops to call out these things to the faithful, to respond as God has first begun his relationship with you, for you to respond to him, to respond in justice and in truth and in goodness and in unity. For that is how you overcome anger. This is when anger is justified, when it turns a man to truth and goodness and beauty, which is the harmony between God and man's soul, and unity. Let us please reflect upon this. There are a lot of men and more women who seem to be hell-bent on making sure that they are preferred and loved and honored before God. And when they're not, they get very nasty and angry. Remember, theologically, hatred is to not prefer something. Something's hated when it's not preferred over something else. This is why God says, hate your father. If you do not hate your father, mother, children, lands, for my sake. The world identifies hatred as being some kind of destructive anger, but it's not. It means the thing is hated because it's not preferred to something else. And it's a judgment. So stop telling me to stop judging. Judgment comes from prudence. You judge between what is true and what is error, what is good and what is evil, and that judgment is based upon the divine revelation of God, enlightening reason, not your own experience, not your own prejudice. We, in justice, must judge and know these things from divine revelation again. If you apply that last remedy, then you will see that where injustice is and how it is against God and his church, you will see where fraud is and how it is trying to defraud you of your salvation and your good. You will see where the false accusations are and that they are not true. You will become very patient, not only with God in your prayers, but more so with yourself. And you will never manipulate men by sitting back and being a pacifist, meaning I don't want conflict. Conflict builds character within us. It requires us to act. It builds within us a strength of identity and understanding. Conflict is absolutely necessary. It wouldn't have been before the fall, but with the complexity of the fall, it's now absolutely necessary for us in order to be able to use our freedom to choose God and reject evil, to choose truth and reject error. So if I seem angry sometimes, know that it is not destructive, but zeal. And I will tell you honestly, a passionate love for God and his church. And if you want to try to destroy that in other men, if you want to try to deface it, then you will face the wrath that will come from this pulpit. But you know what? You're free. Turn the video off. Don't listen. Go listen to someone else who's going to make you feel good, instead of somebody that cares enough to help you to be good.